In the multi-billion-dollar corporate security industry, there is an unwritten operational rule known as the good boy protocol. When a major client commands, corporate leadership doesn't ask questions. They sit, they stay, and they roll over. But what happens when being a good boy means throwing a dedicated professional officer straight under the corporate bus just to keep that client happy? Today, we are looking at the terrifying reality of contract pleasing, where a client's minor inconvenience, lazy assumption, or outright lie is worth more than a frontline guard's entire livelihood. If you think this is just cynical hyperbole, look at what's happening on the front lines right now. A recent case study shared by a dedicated officer highlights the exact corporate script. She was pulled off her full-time site and had her hours stripped away because a client representative claimed a female guard was asking to sleep on site and that someone was using an upstairs event room bathroom. Notice the immediate operational reflex. Management didn't look at the badge logs. They didn't pull the camera footage to establish the timeline or prove her innocence first. They just reacted. As Reddit user representative brilliantly put it, smells like scapegoat stew. Securitas immediately yanked her full-time income and replaced her just to show the client they solved the problem. In this industry, you are guilty until proven innocent, because conducting an actual investigation takes time, and replacing you takes 5 minutes. I know the script inside and out because I lived it. When I worked in the hospital under a Securitas contract, I encountered the ultimate dangerous evolution of the good boy protocol, where corporate compliance almost led to a massive legal catastrophe. The assignment on paper was straightforward, but the operational reality on the floor was a massive trap. I was explicitly directed to go into a room and perform a constant watch on an Alzheimer's patient. The floor staff expected me to handle a highly sensitive clinical medical situation, preventing the patient from physically pulling out his catheter. Around 2022, clinical nursing staff were shorthanded and being sought after everywhere. Because of those clinical gaps, they tried to turn security officers into unlicensed medical workers. When the patient began pulling on the catheter, I did my exact job. I immediately stepped back and alerted the floor nurse. Her response to me was, "Can you stop him?" I stood my ground. My official post orders explicitly stated that security personnel are not to touch patients unless specifically directed by a doctor or defined by strict emergency post parameters. Medical intervention is entirely outside our legal capacity. I told her directly, "No, we are not supposed to touch patients unless directed by a doctor or post orders." Recognizing the systemic misuse of frontline staff, I didn't let it slide. I sent a formal email to head nurse Leah challenging the practice. I asked why we were being stationed inside patient rooms for these watches, and if we were being used as extra clinical staff to fill their hiring gaps. But I didn't just press the hospital, I pressed my own leadership. From the very day I started at that site, I asked my managers, Corey and Doug, a simple fundamental question. If something happens out here, who has my back? The response, absolute silence. Neither Corey nor Doug would answer me. They couldn't answer me. I even put that exact question in writing in my email to the hospital. When your own leadership refuses to tell you who protects you when the liability hits the fan, they are already preparing to sacrifice you. By chance, I knew an attorney and asked him about this exact scenario in passing. The lawyer plainly confirmed the massive legal trap the hospital and Securitas were setting. He told me that if that patient had been injured or pulled the catheter out while I was acting as unlicensed medical personnel, the liability would be catastrophic. They would have sued me personally, the security company, the floor staff, and the hospital itself. So how did Securitas and hospital leadership respond to an officer preventing a multi-million-dollar liability lawsuit? They wagged their tails for the client and bit the guard. According to a supervisor named Doug, Sean, who manages the vendor and security contracts at Memorial Hospital, specifically demanded my immediate removal from the site, simply because I dared to consult with an attorney. Instead of correcting their floor staff for violating post orders or answering my day one safety concerns, Securitas corporate management protected the contract. They hit me with a formal write-up for emailing Leia, completely ignored the glaring legal dangers, and used it as an excuse to pull me off the site and force a transfer. They didn't have my back. They had the client's wallet. Whether it's a plaza guard on Reddit losing her full-time hours over a bathroom she didn't even know existed, or an officer being written up for refusing to act as an unlicensed nurse, the core philosophy of corporate contract security remains completely unchanged. Protect the billable hour, appease the client, sacrifice the guard. But remember this, you are not just a warm body filling a slot on a scheduling grid. You are a human being with rights, a professional with parameters, and a somebody. Demand to be treated like one.